looking at that history of the family of Abraham, and there were two things that were plaguing that family. Number one, premature death. And secondly, childlessness. Because if you look, one of the mother to Lot, Lot alikuwa, Abraham was uncle to Lot. The mother to Lot died very young. And that is why when Lot was growing up, alikuwa na consider Abraham ni kama baba yake. And they say when you even go back, you see that pattern. Childlessness. Someone like Sarah struggled to get a child. You go like that after Sarah, Rebecca struggled to get a child. You go to Rachel, but somewhere God breaks that thing out of his mercy. So God can pick people even when you look at your family. You can draw your family tree. You can draw a pattern and say, Levi, Iko, Doi. I can trace it back. But we serve a merciful God. We serve a God who rewrites the stories of families. A couple, if they had remained worshiping the moon god, there would be no child. Sindio, will they get any child? No. Because that child was a promise from God, who told them that I will make you the father of nations. I will bless you and give you a child. Because that is what happened. The devil comes to plague us na kutupatia hizo mizigo generation after generation. But it comes a place when we turn to God, he shows us mercy. If you find maybe unaangalia kwenye unasema like people don't get married, or there is just a struggle with immorality, when we turn to God, he can break that thing. And he shows us mercy. So God picks people that families that just are, ingekuwa in our days tungeziita dysfunctional homes. Sindio? But out of those dysfunctional homes, he brings them, he molds them, and brings a king out of them. The second one is, I'll talk about divine judgment. There's divine mercy, but there's also divine judgment. From the time of King David, God was very gracious. By the time King David is coming in, we see the mercy of God. Tunaona tu Mungu rehema kila mahali with the children of Israel. And we find that it is the highlight of politics is happening in Israel. The spiritual glory when David is king. But after David is king, we begin to see the kingdom of Israel deteriorate day by day. And there are two things I want us to notice about in the book, in those areas. Matthew brings in someone called Asa. King Asa. Some versions say Asa, but if you go to other versions, they say Asaph. Asaph was not a king. Asaph was a psalmist. And then if you go down, I've seen NIV put the name Ammon, but if you read other versions and a letter, someone called Amos, and says Amos ndio alikuwa beget the next king. But anafanya hivyo intentionally. And this is to show us that at this particular time, God was really concerned about what was going on in Israel. Na Mungu alikuwa anatumia psalmists to prophesy. Psalmists were the ones speaking. They would go around and as they sang, they would sing of what is happening in that particular time. And Amos was a prophet that alikuwa ana-reign before the children of Israel went to exile. And the reason God anafanya hivi, hakukuwa na social justice. God had shown them mercy. They were so blessed. Tunaona after the 12 sons of Jacob going down, the blessings of God were running. But people wakakuwa ignorant na wakaamua kutembea katika dhambi. That is the danger of being blessed. Do you know that? Do you hear the story of when it comes to family wealth, what happened? There's the generation that grows na mashida, sindio? Ya kwanza. The second generation wanafanya bidii, sindio? And they say we don't want poverty. And they make a lot of money. The third generation was born when there's money. What happens to the money? They eat the money. Sindio? They do not know what it means to sweat. That is what happened to the children of Israel. Abraham akastruggle na Mungu, akapata mtoto. Generations come, they go to Egypt, then they've known. And then God blesses them. Anawabariki, anawapea the land. They go to Canaan, they take over. Then now comes the generation that eats the man and forgets God. And they begin to sin. And when they begin to sin, God decides, hamtaendelea hivyo. I will judge you because of your wickedness. And he begins to speak to them. He begins to send warnings. Amos chapter 5, 22-24. And he says this, spare me the sounds of your songs. I cannot stand the music of your choir, but let justice roll down like the waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Mungu anawambia, mimi, don't mention my name in your mouth because you're living in sin. Mnaishi maisha ya dhambi. And so I'm going to roll down judgment upon you. And at this particular point, it is just to bring our caution. There are families here, God has shown you mercy. Amen? You can look back na unasema, me, God has shown us mercy. God probably aliwatoa, mali Mungu amewatoa, you can write a book. Lakini, we become even careless to living for God, to serving. Tunasahau shida. Unajua ukisahau shida, unatosheka. We're not even keen to seek this God anymore. Atujali. We become like the children of Israel from the time of David to the time they go to exile. They became careless. They were not even keen to teach their children and train them the way Joshua had told them. Teach this thing. When you walk on the road, teach them to your children. When you're in houses, teach them to your children. When you're lying down, teach them to. They were not doing that. Wakasahau. They became too content and began to sin. Na hiyo ndio danger of even salvation. We were recently doing like the way a survey, and I was telling people, a friend, one of the pastors had gone to South Korea. When they went to South Korea, they were so shocked. Walienda church, 25,000. Sunday, traffic kwa barabara. Ati watu wanaenda church. Venye Kenya Sunday ndio hakuna traffic. And when they came back, they told us, a survey says, only 7% of Kenyans go to church. 7. Na wanasema we are 80%. 7% ndio watu wanaenda church. The others walizaliwa wakapata tunasemanga Bwana asifiwe. Nimeokoka, Yesu ni Bwana. Grow wakapata hivyo ndio watu wanajidentify. And so people have forgotten about God. Hawaoni the need. You can see Saturday unaweza enda ukunywe na kesho utokee church kidogo. You can be sleeping around and still show up in church. But you see, it is hiyo tabia ndio the children of Israel had, and God brought his judgment. Because a generation inakuwa careless. If you ask someone, wanakwambia, I'm born again. What is the meaning of being born again? Hawajui. Wao walijikuta Sunday school, si ndio? Because mimi, I can say I've grown up in the generation where Sunday school ilikuwa very serious. You have to go to church. Hata kama utake ama unataka, I found myself in church. And so, we become careless. But that invites the judgment of God. And maybe ni kutuamsha. We need to wake up. Even you go ask yourself, by the way, I'm born again. Am I still born again? Am I still living the way Mungu ananiita niishi? Because salvation does not mean God does not demand of you to live a righteous life. It does not mean that. Salvation comes with responsibility. Amen? With responsibility. You must be responsible. You must live a holy life. You must live a righteous life. You must work out your salvation. You must seek the face of God. It does not mean that we become careless because we are saved. Matthew 12 verse 36 says, but I tell you that everyone will give an account on the day of judgment for the empty words they have spoken. Revelation chapter 20 verse 12 says, and I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and the book was opened. Another book was opened, with which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what they had done. They had done as recorded in the book. We will give an account. We will give an account. We must live a life that demonstrates, if we are born again, demonstrates that. For instance, nowadays, Christmas even is being watered down. Things to do with Santa. Santa, we do that. Where do they even? So you're finding the church is borrowing from the world. Tunaleta udunia. Slowly by slowly, we're bringing in the world. But that's not the reason why we celebrate Christmas, even though there are many debates around it. It's because Jesus came, died for you, to redeem you from that sin. It's not so that you live the life of sin, so that you get out of it and live for God, lest we encounter the judgment of God. And where we see judgment, even in our own family, even in our own children, there are people you can see how they live. And you can say, this is because of a life of sin. We must call it out and tell them, some of these things happening is because of how you live.